What if everything you were taught about strength was a lie, not a misunderstanding, a deliberate deception? Because in the real world, the kind of strength you're praised for, being vulnerable, being nice, being endlessly self-aware, is the same thing that gets you ignored, manipulated, and crushed under pressure. You think being emotionally open makes you powerful? Machiavelli would laugh in your face. He believed that the world doesn't respond to your sincerity. It responds to your ability to control perception, hide your weakness, and act from strategy, not emotion. And the worst part? He was right. This video is not motivational fluff. It's not another feel-good lecture on believing in yourself. It's a psychological dissection of why you're still weak and how the world benefits from keeping you that way. You'll learn the tools that powerful people never admit they use. You'll see how fear is more useful than love, and you'll understand why being nice is the fastest path to being disposable. This isn't about becoming a villain. It's about becoming someone who can't be broken. Because right now, someone weaker than you is getting more respect simply because they know how to look dangerous. And that should terrify you. We live in an era obsessed with strength, but not the kind that survives pressure, commands silence, or walks away without explanation. No, the kind that trends, that posts, that's loud, self-congratulatory, and always healing. You're told you're strong if you cry in public. You're strong if you post your breakdown. You're strong if you feel everything, say everything, and make sure the world knows it. But when the crisis comes, when the room turns hostile, when someone finally tests your words in the battlefield of real human behavior, that kind of strength doesn't hold. It folds. Because modern culture hasn't taught you how to endure. It's taught you how to express. And those two are not the same. We're told that to love yourself is strength, that vulnerability is courage, that validation is a path to clarity. But Niccolo Machiavelli would scoff at this illusion. He would say, "What good is self-love if it can be broken with a glare? What is vulnerability if it signals your weakness before your enemy even speaks? What clarity comes from needing to be seen before you act?" He understood something uncomfortable, that real strength, usable strength, isn't emotional exposure, it's emotional control. We don't live in a world that rewards depth. We live in a world that rewards signals, and people have learned how to signal strength without ever possessing it. That's the danger. The loudest person in the room might be the most terrified. The most confident person may be one insult away from collapse. And the one who says nothing, who watches, waits, speaks rarely, is often the one holding the real power. You've seen this before, in the office, in family dynamics, in politics. One person performs strength, another owns it, and when the moment comes, only one is left standing. The modern illusion has made us mistake visibility for influence, sensitivity for insight, and reaction for authority. But Machiavelli saw power for what it was, a cold calculation built on control, timing, and the willingness to be misjudged in silence. So if you want to erase your weakness, the first step isn't to love yourself harder, it's to stop believing the world will reward you for being soft, honest, and well-intentioned. It won't. The world respects control over chaos. The world rewards the one who speaks last, not the one who speaks loudest. And the first thing it punishes is the one who needs to be seen to feel strong. Say his name, and most people flinch. Machiavelli, a figure draped in shadows, whispered about in tones reserved for tyrants. He's become the literary devil on your shoulder, the symbol of ruthless manipulation, cold calculation, and moral decay. But that version of him is fiction. The real Machiavelli wasn't evil. He was simply honest in a world that punishes honesty. Born in the turbulence of 16th century Florence, a place constantly torn between foreign invasions, internal betrayals, and shifting alliances, Machiavelli saw firsthand what happened to men who led with good intentions. They didn't inspire loyalty, they didn't win peace, they were destroyed. And so he wrote The Prince, not as a manifesto for cruelty, but as a survival manual, a brutal, unsentimental x-ray of how power actually works. He didn't say you should be cruel, he said you should know when cruelty is necessary. He didn't say you must deceive, but that truth without strategy can become a liability. What disturbed people wasn't what he promoted, it was what he revealed. That behind the curtain of every noble speech, every act of mercy, every symbolic gesture, There is calculation, that the good king and the villain often use the same tools, but only one of them knows when to hide the blade. Machiavelli shattered the myth that power is earned by virtue. He knew that people follow strength, or the illusion of it. It is not necessary to be truly good, only to appear so. Not because he lacked morals, but because he understood that in politics and life, virtue is often judged by optics, not outcomes. And if you think this is outdated, look around. How many modern leaders survive because they are effective, and how many survive because they know how to perform effectiveness? How many people are respected because they speak the truth, and how many are feared because they speak strategically? This is Machiavelli's legacy. He didn't tell us how to dominate people. He showed us how domination already works. He was a mirror, not a monster. And mirrors are dangerous because they don't comfort, they reflect. So why has history villainized him? Because he wrote things most people weren't ready to admit. That fear holds people longer than love. That mercy can be interpreted as weakness. That the public prefers leaders who look like saviors even if they're not. And most dangerously, that if you don't understand how power functions, someone else will use it against you. In a time of collapsing empires and poisoned alliances, Machiavelli offered clarity, not hope, not idealism, but strategy. And if that still makes you uncomfortable, ask yourself this: would you rather feel good and lose, or understand the game and finally start playing it on your own terms? Because before we erase weakness, we must understand what it really looks like. It's not fear, it's naivety, the belief that the world will reward your sincerity instead of your strategy. Machiavelli saw this lie, and he tore it apart, not with cruelty, no, but with truth too sharp for the gentle to hold. Weakness isn't just tolerated today. It's encouraged, cultivated, monetized, applauded. Not because the world has suddenly become kinder, more compassionate, or emotionally intelligent, but because weakness is easier to manage. We've been led to believe that weakness is a personal flaw, something you either grew up with or have to work through privately. But what if it's not? What if weakness is a feature, not a bug, something deliberately designed into the system? From school desks to social feeds, we are conditioned, subtly and systematically, to submit, not sharpen. Let's begin with education. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent." But now that burden has a new form: institutional conformity. We don't teach children how to master themselves. We teach them how to sit still, obey bells, and fear mistakes. Creativity becomes disorder. Emotional independence becomes arrogance. And slowly they learn it is safer to fit in than to stand out. That's not education, that's preparation for compliance. By adulthood, most people don't even realize they've been taught to fear their own potential. Let's go deeper into the mind itself. Psychologist Martin Seligman coined the term learned helplessness, a state where individuals, after repeated failures or punishments, stop trying altogether. They believe they're powerless even when they're not. Now imagine this principle applied socially, not just personally. You're told your voice matters, but you're punished when you speak too freely. You're told to be yourself, but only within algorithm-approved boundaries. You're told to chase success, but success only comes if you make yourself likable, compliant, unthreatening. Over time, you learn a subtle lesson. Power belongs to those who already have it. You? Stay humble, stay small, stay agreeable. And so we do. Why does this system prefer weakness? Because strength resists control. Because confident individuals are hard to sell to. Because emotionally self-sufficient people don't need constant entertainment, outrage, or reassurance. Weakness is profitable. It creates lifelong customers for products, for ideologies, for illusions. You feel insecure? Here's a product. You feel powerless? Here's a tribe. You feel unheard? Here's a platform, but only if you play by the rules. It's not personal, it's structural. As Erich Fromm warned, modern man is ready to sacrifice his life, but not his illusions. We've become emotionally addicted to systems that promise empowerment, but only deliver dependency. Consider how weakness is rebranded as strength in modern discourse. Overthinking becomes high sensitivity. Inability to regulate emotion becomes authenticity. Emotional volatility becomes relatability. And worst of all, validation once earned is now expected as a right. But Machiavelli would look at this and see the trap. He would say, this isn't strength, this is surrender, dressed in soft language. Because true strength doesn't seek recognition. It operates silently. It thrives without applause. So what's the antidote? Machiavellian thinking, not as manipulation but as detox. It strips away emotional idealism and forces you to ask, who benefits from my weakness? What systems thrive on my confusion? What illusions am I clinging to because they make me feel safe? It's not comfortable, but it's necessary. Because in a world where emotional dependence is marketed as empowerment, clarity becomes rebellion. This kind of clarity doesn't mean becoming emotionless. It means becoming selectively emotional, directing your energy, your attention, and your loyalty with surgical precision. It means reclaiming sovereignty over your own psychology. And here's the final twist. The more you detach from this engineered weakness, and the more people will try to pull you back in, not because they hate you, but because your independence disrupts the script. They've been trained to see confidence as arrogance, detachment as coldness, power as cruelty. And so when you refuse to collapse with them, they call you dangerous, but in truth, you're just free. If there is one thing Machiavelli understood better than anyone, it was this. You don't survive by being good. You survive by being unreadable, untouchable, and dangerous to underestimate. He never claimed the world was fair. He claimed the world was predictable, and that if you learned its rules, you could bend it to your will. So let's strip the philosophy down to its bones. What does Machiavellian thinking actually look like when applied today? Here's the toolkit. Uncomfortable, ruthless, but liberating because it doesn't ask you to change who you are. It asks you to stop bleeding power without realizing it. 1. Control perception, not reality. People don't react to your truth. They react to the story they've created about you. And most of the time, that story is shallow, unconscious, and built in seconds. This is why controlling perception is more valuable than controlling facts. Because facts don't govern emotion. Perception does. Machiavelli warned, never show people what you truly are. Show them what is useful to believe. Modern case study. Think of how politicians survive scandal, not by proving innocence, but by flooding the public with alternative narratives until no one's sure what the truth even is. It's not truth that wins, it's narrative dominance. In personal life, this means being aware of what you signal. Are you too quick to explain? You'll be seen as uncertain. Too quick to please? You'll be seen as weak. Too transparent with your goals? You'll be outmaneuvered before you even move. Control what people think of you, or accept what they invent in your silence. 2. Be feared before you are loved. This is perhaps Machiavelli's most quoted and most misunderstood idea. It is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Fear, in his terms, isn't terror. It's respect built on boundaries. People love you when it's convenient. They fear disappointing you when it's consequential. In leadership, this means being firm before being friendly. In relationships, this means making it clear that your absence is just as powerful as your presence. In negotiations, this means showing you can walk away, not out of pettiness, but out of principle. Fear protects you from betrayal. Love on its own makes you disposable. And the moment people sense you need their affection, they stop giving it freely. 3. Hide intentions. Reveal strength. People feel safest when they can read you. That's why manipulators love emotionally transparent individuals. They're easy to map, easy to manage, easy to disarm. Machiavelli advises, never reveal your entire plan. Today that means, don't vent your frustration to everyone who listens. Don't tell people your next move until you've made it. Don't share every emotion, especially not in moments of power imbalance. Instead, cultivate emotional opacity. Let people feel your composure, not your confusion. Your clarity, not your chaos. Let your actions reveal your seriousness, not your need to be understood. This isn't about deception, it's about strategic privacy. The less people know what moves you, the harder it is to move you. 4. Punish once, reward slowly. This one disturbs people, because we want to believe that if we're good to others, they'll return the favor. But Machiavelli saw how quickly kindness is forgotten and how long punishment is remembered. Men are quicker to forget the death of a father than the loss of their inheritance. If someone crosses a line, correct it once, decisively. Not with emotion, not with drama, with finality. You don't need to raise your voice, but you do need to raise the stakes. On the other hand, rewards should be slow, unpredictable, and rare, because that's how you increase their value. Be generous, but make it felt. Be kind, but make it earned. Because when people feel entitled to your goodness, they no longer respect it. 5. Detach emotion from outcome. This is the final and most important tool. People who are ruled by outcomes are easy to control. They react to failure, they spiral after rejection, they overcompensate after embarrassment. Machiavelli knew the most powerful figure is not the one who wins. It's the one who remains unmoved by temporary outcomes. If you speak and they laugh, hold your ground. If you lose, learn but never beg. If they ghost you, vanish harder. This isn't ego. This is strategic detachment, the ability to act from principle, not panic. Modern power belongs to those who keep their center when everyone else is chasing applause. The mindset behind it all. Machiavelli's tactics are often labeled as dark, but the darkness isn't in the tools. It's in the world they were made for. He wasn't teaching you how to manipulate. He was teaching you how to stop being manipulated. These tools aren't about becoming cold or cruel. They're about becoming clear about what people respond to, what power actually looks like, and how to stop leaking your strength in a culture that thrives on emotional dependence. Every tool is rooted in one truth: control yourself or be controlled by others. It's not fair, it's not pretty, but it is reality. And if you can handle that reality without flinching, you'll never have to perform strength again. You'll simply embody it quietly, unshakably, and without permission. Power always has a price, but so does weakness. One costs you comfort, the other costs you yourself. Machiavelli never pretended otherwise. He didn't romanticize strength or glamorize ruthlessness. He simply made a choice to see reality as it is, not as we want it to be. And once you see clearly, you realize there are only two positions in this world. Either you carry the burden of your own strength, or you are carried by the will of someone stronger than you. There is no middle ground. There never was. After everything you've learned, the tools, the psychology, the conditioning, the natural question becomes, what does it cost to live like this, to detach, to control, to appear calm when your heart is pounding, to walk away when your emotions beg you to chase? The cost is not blood or gold, it's misunderstanding. You'll be called distant, cold. People will say you've changed. They'll misread your composure as arrogance, your detachment as emptiness. Because most people only feel safe around the familiar patterns of weakness, around shared wounds, unfiltered emotions, messy vulnerability. And when you stop leaking, when you move with calm instead of chaos, you no longer mirror their story. You become the threat they can't define. That's the paradox of power. You become admired from a distance and feared up close. But let's not pretend weakness doesn't offer its own rewards. Weakness feels warm. It gets sympathy. It earns softness, approval, shared misery. You get to say they hurt me instead of asking why did I stay. You get to collapse and be comforted. You get to express every raw feeling and call it honesty. But over time, that warmth begins to rot. You become someone who needs permission to exist, who asks for love then resents those who give it conditionally, who watches strong people move past you and feels bitterness instead of inspiration. Weakness feels safe until it isn't, until it leaves you explaining your worth to people who stopped listening, until it leaves you loyal to those who betray you and apologizing for wanting more. That's the hidden cost. A life where you're seen but never truly respected. Machiavelli's path is not easy. To walk it means embracing solitude. It means earning respect instead of demanding it. It means building an inner world so solid that even silence can't shake you. Yes, you may lose some friends. Yes, you may walk alone, but you gain something far more dangerous. You become a person others cannot define, not because you're hiding, but because you've stopped needing to be seen. That kind of freedom, it terrifies people, and it changes you. You start to speak differently. You listen longer. You don't flinch when tension rises. You don't beg for kindness. You recognize manipulation and walk through it like fog. You become what Machiavelli respected most, a person who can rule themselves. And in the end, that's the only real power that matters. Because everything else, the applause, the followers, the charm, can be taken. But the man or woman who controls their own emotion, their own time, their own presence, that person cannot be ruled. And maybe, just maybe, that's why this path feels so lonely. Because most people are still waiting for permission to feel strong. You no longer need it. So here's the final question, the one Machiavelli never had to ask, because he already knew the answer. If the world rewards illusion and punishes sincerity, what kind of person must you become to stay free? You already know. You just haven't decided yet. Right now, there are 2 videos on your screen, handpicked just for you. Click to watch them. I'm sure you'll love every second.